Alright, so for the 7th year anniversary, we got a whole host of buffs for different servants, and I want to say that I was waiting until the last day where they all became available to record this video, and yeah, we finally gotten our last batch of buffs, and I will say that most of these are going to be pretty impactful for a lot of these servants. A lot of these buffs are very, very strong. Some of them are kind of like the start to making the servant a bit more playable, like in the case of someone like Diermude. It might not seem super insane, but it's kind of like a necessary start to making him a much, much better servant, right? A lot of them also are just kind of like good. Like one that I'm really looking forward to when it comes to the NA version of the game is Sabre Lance because I have this guy at NP5. He's one of my favorite servants to use because you literally just click all 3 of his skills and just pop off for the next 3 turns. They gave him a little bit of extra damage on his NP and stuff like that I'm really looking forward to. Some people like Bunyan. I kind of feel like she got shafted a little bit, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So starting off with Vlad, they took this overall like kind of mid party NP damage buff, and they allow him to not only triple buff himself, but double buff everybody in the party by now giving the entire party 20% to their NP damage and their buster buff on a 5-turn cooldown, both of those lasting for 3 turns. But if that's not enough damage for him to be getting, anytime that he gets hit, he's going to reduce that enemy's defense by 10%, dude. It's absolutely insane that this guy's just getting just a dump truck amount of damage put onto him. Because don't forget, he could triple buff himself with his attack buff over here, and he could do some really good damage against evil people. And his NP comes chocked with Pierce Invincibility. Like, he kind of just went from being this okay, kind of maybe niche, evil killing Lancer guy to now just being a huge asset for the party, but also just being like way better himself, right? Like, he just got an insane amount of damage. And again, this is one of the guys that I'm really looking forward to getting on NA, because this was like my first NP5 servant when I started playing NA, when I was summoning for Cleopatra when she first came out. So I'm really excited to see him go from literally 0 to hero, right? I'm really excited about that. Jacqueline Hyde, this is very similar to someone like Diermude. I feel like this was just a necessary buff to get him. You know, the Hyde aspect will get better with time, but basically, whenever he's Jackal, this guy, they want you to get into Hyde as soon as possible, so they gave him an 80% battery. If you have his pen skill leveled or something, you can literally just, boom, jump into the fight and immediately transform into Hyde. Hyde needs like a few more buffs to kind of make himself a bit more worth going into, but you know, we're working with a little bit of things, right? Like, we got the crit buffs, you know, we could do some damage and whatnot. I think the problem is just that, you know, Hyde is very reliant on doing like big buster crits, right? He's kind of like locked into doing that. And so they need to give him some more Super Orion-esque buffs, right? Because Super Orion is able to do that really well because Super Orion just stacks up his cards with so much damage that he's able to just tear through anything. If they start giving him similar buffs, like where he can like, you know, refund a lot of his own stars to keep the crits coming, they give him even more ways to like stack crit damage, they give him card buffs and whatnot, so he could definitely become a lot better. But this is a good step in the right direction, because this is going to basically allow you to just jump into the Hyde part of your kit. Because if you don't know how this servant works, I would understand if you don't. Basically, you pop the NP and he switches from the assassin Henry Jackal into a Doctor. What is it? No, it's Dr. Jackal and Mr. Hyde. Sorry, I got it backwards. But basically, yeah, he goes sicko mode, right? He turns into a berserker and he starts, you know, just start dunking on people, right? It's just the problem is that it's not necessarily worth going into Hyde right now. It might be kind of fun for like a niche bit of toying around, but you know, like, it's generally just not super great. But they're definitely getting there. I think this is a huge step in the right direction. Medusa just got a very mild battery. She got a 30%, so this kind of helps her out a little bit. Nothing too insane. It's going to help her be a little more consistent when it comes to firing her NP. It gives her some synergy with being a farming servant, because while she is a single target, there are a lot of very strange nodes that have, you know, maybe 3 enemies at the start, then 1 big enemy for wave 2, and then wave 3 is just going back to 3 people. For nodes like that, it's really good to have these single target servants that can just pop off their battery and just take somebody out, you know. And, you know, if you have Medusa Lancer at like NP5 or something, you know, maybe you could get, you've gotten spooked by her a lot or something. You know, she can fulfill that role for you pretty well. But yeah, it's just something solid for her to get. Nothing too insane, but, you know, just good, because who doesn't want a battery? Diarmuid, I said, would kind of just got a necessary buff. Yeah, they buffed his arts and quick cards. Not a whole lot else to really speak of here. The buffs aren't super massive. They're only 20%. The crit damage is even kind of mild at 30%, but it's a good step in the right direction, right? Very similar to Jacqueline Hyde. Diarmuid, if you guys don't know, literally had no way to buff his own damage. Nowhere on his kit. Literally had no way to give himself any damage. So it's like, you would just smack him with that borderline 7k attack. That's basically all you'd be doing. And yeah, didn't really make him super great, but this is going to allow him to actually be a little decent. We throw like another buff or two Diarmuid's way, and this guy could actually be a little insane. It's a shame that you remove their buffs after firing the NP, because if you do that beforehand, whew, that's when you can become a little nutty. But who knows, maybe they buff his NP again and they give him that ability. But yeah, Diarmuid just gets a really good buff that kind of puts him back on the right track. Shiki's buff is actually really interesting. So they gave her a battery like the assassin version, but here's the interesting thing, is that she charges her own NP gauge, but the HP is now targetable, and whoever you target it on, they lose 10%. So let's say you have double Castoria and you have Shiki, right? Shiki can target Castoria, basically take 10% of her own NP, give Castoria some HP, but still charge herself the full 30%, right? That is really cool. I really like how that works. You can kind of divert that away from yourself to make sure that you don't end up like Parvati, right? Because, you know, Parvati can give somebody 20%, but if she gives it to herself, it's only 10% because it costs 10% of her own NP. So I think it's really cool that they're allowing you to have that kind of interaction, that because charging your own NP is a like separate effect, right? It's something you're just going to do innately. I'm glad that they kind of gave that to her. So yeah, I think it's a really cool buff for Shiki. Still going to need a little bit more going forward. Although now that I have done a little bit of testing with farming with Sabre Nero, who also only has one hit on an AoE arts NP, you could brute force your way and do it now. And having a battery definitely makes it a lot easier. But I'd like to see Shiki maybe get like one more buff, but maybe I'm being a little greedy on that one. Fergus just gets a general buff. He's able to give himself a little bit of extra buster damage, which is good because he has an attack buff over here. And so now that 30% attack buff is going to multiply into that 20% buster buff. And then, you know, because he's got the monkey triple buster deck, they gave him some buster crit damage. So just generally a decent offensive buff for Fergus. Nothing too insane. His damage is definitely going to go up because now he can double buff himself, and he can actually make use of some of those crits. So, you know, not really a bad servant, you know. Nothing insane, but nothing too bad either. Ushiwakamaru is one of the first ones that I thought was really insane. She gets a special damage mod against lawful alignments. And dude, check this out. It's a shame she is AoE, because if she's a single target, she'd be like some of the better servants to bring now to take down people like Arjuna Alter or like Morgan and Ivan, right? Because she's super effective against them. They're lawful. You know, she's going to get that 150% extra damage against them and just curse smack them in the ground. The other one I was looking at as well is Yong Yoo, which she actually might shine for that battle because, you know, a lot of people kind of struggle fighting Yong Yoo because, you know, he's just big berserker man and he could be kind of hard to take out in Lost Belt 3. And so being able to just have Ushi, who can not only deal with the consort Yu, who's in the second battle, or the Lan Ling, while also doing big damage to Zhang Yu, I think is just really strong. So I think that was really good, because it's not like a pointless special damage mod. Like, there's actually specific people that she's super effective against that she can also hit with the special damage mod, right? You guys get what I'm saying? So it makes her really good for that. Other ones as well, like Baiken, her challenge quest for the doggo event can maybe be a little hard for some people, but you know, if you're struggling with that, Ushiwakamaru, you bring your own dog, you know what I'm saying, and you just curse smack them into the ground. Bartholomew just got like a general, I guess we could call it like a charisma skill, because now this is like his support buff, right, that he gives to the entire party. And it's pretty insane. I mean, giving everybody 50% crit damage for 3 turns and 10% gauge is really nice. For reference, you guys know I have to say, 50% crit damage is the waiver crit damage buff, so he's basically giving that to the entire party. Same cooldown and everything. It's just absolutely insane. It's really, really good. I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to do with him in the future because, you know, he's already got this weird niche where he kills the bronze rarity enemies, which is actually not too bad. But now they're kind of letting him lean more into being a support type, which, I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see where they go with this guy. This was overall, like, I think pretty good. Murasaki got an anti-earth special damage mod, which, you know, hey man, if you ever need your Merlin smacked into the ground, Murasaki's going to be there for you. I mean, the special damage mod, pretty much, it'll let you go fight anybody type neutral, right? Because you get that big 150% extra damage. But specifically, you want to look at the enemies that are, like, you also have super effective against, right? You have type advantage. And so literally anyone from Medea to Miss Crane over here, she's going to just put them in a box and ship them around the world. You know what I'm saying? She is going to absolutely decimate them. If you're struggling with the Kriemhild fight in Trom, if you're struggling against Morgan, it's going to be your girl to bring. If Kaze Kyo is giving you a little bit of struggle, you can bring Murasaki Rider because, you know, now her lockdown kit actually has something to build up to. Like, so now she can lock down enemies, but now also just absolutely destroy them, right? Because keep in mind, her NP is also getting bonus damage just for being upgraded, and now anybody here just gets obliterated. Also, yeah, if there's any, like, big dragons or stuff you're struggling with, these are also enemies that Murasaki could take out as well. Tauda got a very nice buff as well. Basically, this is going to allow him to have his own mana burst because of his first skill. This 30% will add into this 20% buster buff that he's getting right there. So he essentially has a buster mana burst for 3 turns if you have both of these up, because they both last for 3 turns, which is pretty good for his overall damage. And then they just slapped this on him as well. They were like, yeah, and you also just give everybody 10% NP, and it's like, I'll take it. Sure, man, just give that to me. Sure, we'll take the 10% battery, but most importantly, his damage is going to be going up. He can give a little bit of extra damage to the party if you're using people that, you know, synergize with getting buster buffs. But even if you're just using them with good old supports, they're going to love having that extra 10% NP. It's going to help them get through their own NPs faster, and that means that they're going to be able to assist Tauda much easier. Voyager, I thought, was pretty interesting because maybe, I don't know, they've heard the complaints on his second skill that you can waste one of these buffs, right? If you pop this on turn 1 to try to get this for looping, then you waste the second part here. So they were like, all right, well, let's give our boy a little bit of a hand and give him a 30% quick buff on his third skill. So essentially now, if you add these two together, you have his own quick mana burst. But it also, you know, makes this, like, if you waste this on the turn 1 for your farming or something, it doesn't hurt as bad now, right? Like, it's not as much of an L because now you have a 50% quick mana burst, which is not only massively gassing up your damage, but it's also gassing up your NP gain for your quick card. So it means Voyager is going to be able to loop a bit easier now. So if you're using Voyager, your boy just got a lot better. Gilda Ray got a lore skill because he's buffing foreigner allies. Because if you guys don't know, Gilda Ray has some weird sussy activity going on with different outer gods and whatnot. So he's got that going for him. But he also reduces enemies' defense by 20% for 3 turns now. So, I don't know, Gilda Ray can do a little bit of damage now? Sure, like, it's literally just a lore upgrade. I mean, I don't know what foreigner you're going to be using him with, but if you want to be really funny, if you think it's just hilarious to use, like, Gilda Ray and Abigail or something, I just pop off, I guess, you know? Lancelot Saber, they gave him a nice little buff to his NP, because just buffing the NP alone is going to allow him to do more damage, which is like the one thing that he's kind of lacking in. His NP, even at NP5, from my experience, can kind of hit like a wet pool noodle. But they also went ahead, as you can see right here, they buffed the damage taken that he gives on his overcharge. So now he's stacking that NP damage even more, right? Or not NP damage, but every time he fires his NP, he's going to be stacking even more damage on top of his NP hitting harder. So just generally a very, very good buff. Nothing super insane, but this is pretty much what he would have wanted, right? Just the ability to do more damage is kind of all he needed, because his skills are already like pretty consistent and easy to use. We can always buff these in the future later, like we can add effects to that or something. But I think this is really good. And then Bunyan, get ready, boys. Did you catch that? Hold on, did you catch that? 10% extra damage right there. And they buffed the NP damage scaling. They really didn't do a whole lot for Bunyan. I mean, she's a free-to-play, like, NP5 Zerk person, so maybe that's why they were, like, holding back. I don't know if it was because she's free-to-play, or it's because she's, like, a free NP5, and they thought she'd be too broken or something. But they really didn't do too much to her. But, I mean, she is a Buster Servant, and at the end of the day, they gave her more damage. I mean, reducing the defense by an extra 10% does mean any like follow-up Buster cards are going to do even more damage now. So it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just, I don't know, maybe a little anticlimactic after some of the other buffs were a little insane. But yeah, let me know what you guys are looking forward to most over on the NA version of the game when this drops. Because on JP, I'm like, man, I don't have half of these dudes. Like, half of these dudes I have, half of them I don't. So they're cool, but some of the ones that I'm looking forward to, like, I'm really excited to be able to use Vlad and Lancelot, right? Because I have both of them at NP5, and both of their buffs are pretty good. More so Vlad's, because now he triple buffs himself, which is just still dummy, stupid, insane. But yeah, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for daily FGO content. Your boy streams every weekday over on the Twitch. And something, there's a $100 Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. Check out the Discord link down in the description down below. But anyway, you guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.